This video is about free will. Now, when we hear the word free will, we often think about the ability to do what you want to do. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I have the ability to choose between two options. I have the ability to choose between two options. That's what we think about when we hear the word free will. But when you look up the word free will, the standard definition that you get is it is the ability or power to act, or the ability or power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate. So, one acting without the constraint of necessity is what you will get if you were to look up the word free will. But when you do a study on the word free will from a philosophical perspective, what you will immediately find out is something very interesting, something that's enlightening, something that's very intellectually stimulating. Because when you look at the word free will, you learn things in philosophy called determinism, libertarianism, soft determinism, hard determinism, soft libertarianism, and stuff like that I'm going to be defining. Because all of us fall into one of these camps with regards to free will, and bringing the Bible into this, bringing Christianity into this, and when I say Christianity, I mean the only true religion, bringing Christianity into this and bringing God into this, the one and only true and living God, the God of the Bible, Yahweh. We bring him into this, and we we see something very beautiful in how these things come together. And as well, we can also look at the fact that knowing what these things are can inform our worldview, how we view the world, how we look at things around us, how we view the reason why people do what they do, the reason why people think what they think, and how all of these things come together. We learn about the problem of evil, and we learn how to describe the problem of evil, and we learn the solution to the problem of evil. It is very interesting. So the first thing that I'm going to start with, and I don't have a script, so I'm going to be very, very careful not to, mix up in this short video or this long video about free will. Because one day I'm going to be doing a degree in philosophy. I'm gonna have a degree in theology and philosophy one of these days. The Lord permits. Okay, so philosophically, free will is the control condition for moral responsibility, and the epistemic condition for moral responsibility. So the control condition for moral responsibility with the epistemic condition for moral responsibility. Now, when I say condition, I mean this has to be something that the person has in order for him to be morally responsible or morally held accountable for what he did. So when I say the control condition for moral responsibility is free will, I mean when you do what you do, you are in control of what you are doing. And when I say epistemic condition for moral responsibility, are you informed? Do you have the relevant information before you make a decision? For example, if I were to pour sugar in my wife's coffee, not knowing that the sugar that I'm pouring into her coffee was replaced by poison, and I poisoned my wife, even though the control condition for moral responsibility was there because I was in control of my actions, the epistemic condition was not there. So I would not be held accountable morally for accidentally killing my wife, God forbid. So when these two factors are in place and you do what you do, you did what you did, that's free will, the control condition. Now, that's free will. Now let's get on to what determinism is. Determinism is a proposition, or one could say the statement that everything we do, everything we say, everything we think is necessitated by prior factors or antecedent factors about ourselves. If someone eats chocolate, the reason why he ate chocolate is founded upon antecedent facts about himself. And what is that? We could say this individual ate the chocolate because he likes the chocolate. There is an antecedent fact about this man who ate the chocolate that this man likes chocolate. So determinism says everything you do, everything you say, everything you think is necessitated by prior facts about yourself, antecedent factors about yourself. So the definition I gave earlier, if you were to look up the word free will, it is the power or ability of acting without or apart from the constraint of necessity or fate. And that definition is supported by libertarianism. That definition is a libertarian definition. Even though if you were to look that word up and you saw the word on the internet and you see the definition that I gave, because if you look it up right now, I promise you, it's on Google, and Google is basically universal. You look it up and you're going to get the same definition. That definition is a philosophical definition. It's just one-sided because they didn't give you the full story. They could have also said, this is what it means, and it also means this, so that we could get the supporting view of the other side. We could hear the other side's view, because there are two definitions for free will. So that definition I just gave, or just reminded you of, is what we're going to be looking at now, which is libertarianism. Now, libertarianism says that you can act, you can do, you can act, you have the power to act apart from the constraint of necessity. You can act against, in contradiction to, above, beyond, apart from the antecedent factors about yourself. This is when we get into the whole concept of being able to do otherwise, being able to do other than you did in the past. And these two categories, we have the let me see if I can remember here. These two categories. We have I forgot. But there are two categories of being able to do otherwise. One category says, and it has a name that I don't remember. One category, or the name that is given to it, the name that I don't remember, that is given to it, defines it this way. It defines it this way. You could have done otherwise if you had desired to do otherwise. And the other perspective says you could have done otherwise No matter what, you could have done otherwise. It does not care about the fact that it does not look upon the fact that there are some factors in place that necessitated you doing what you did. So the name I can't remember. Yeah. If you had desired to do otherwise, you would have. But because you did not desire to do otherwise, you did not. Hence the antecedent factors. The other one says, even though you have all the antecedent factors in place, you could have done otherwise. Being able to act apart from, above, beyond the constraint of necessity. Okay, so determinism, this says that, I'm going to give you the two views now. Determinism, it says that everything we do, say, think, is necessitated by prior facts or antecedent factors about ourselves. And free will is the control condition for moral responsibility. The perspective that says that these two can be true together and these two things are true together is called compatibilism. It is the view that we are free and we are determined. We are free to do what we do and we are determined to do what we do. Now, this might sound like it is contradictory. It might sound like it is impossible, but it is a perspective. We're going to get into which one the Bible supports in a moment. The other perspective is libertarianism, which says that you are free to do what you do and you are not determined to do what you do. Or one could say that you are free to do what you do in some cases, and you are determined to do what you do in other cases. But it is not the case that you are determined to do everything that you did. It's not the case that you are determined to do everything that you did. And one could go on to say you are not determined at all, and you are free to do what you did, which is the definition that I gave you earlier about, let's define it again, the power of acting without the constraint of necessity. That's libertarianism. So one takes the two perspectives, determinism and free will, together, and the other one throws away determinism and takes free will alone. And let me say, majority of the world holds to libertarianism. Majority of the world. Because we all want to believe that we are in control of our destiny and that nothing determines us to do what we do. We all want to believe that we have free will and we can do what we want to do and nothing can constrain us, nothing can stop us, and it would be unfair for anything to stop us from doing what we want to do. Or, well, I made a blunder there because we all do what we want to do. It would be unfair to say that we are determined to do what we do and face the consequences after doing what we were already determined to do. And on top of that, remember I said that that compatibilism is the perspective that determinism and free will go together. It is also the view that you are responsible for your actions. It is the control condition for moral responsibility, free will, and you are determined. So you're determined to do what you did. You freely do what you did, and you're responsible for what you did. The other perspective says they are not compatible. Because when you speak about libertarianism, another label for the word libertarianism is incompatibilism, because it's saying that determinism and free will are incompatible. If you say that we are determined, then we are not responsible for what we did. And if you say that we are free, then we are not determined. If you get what I'm saying. So it is very, very important to think about these things from the philosophical perspective. Now, which one of these lenses do we look through after we read the Bible when we look at the world? Because we have to let the Bible inform our worldview. So after we read the Bible and we hear about God, the sovereign God of the universe, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the master and ruler, when we read about him and we read about how he acts in Scripture, when we read about what God does in Scripture, and we have our worldviews informed, which one of these lenses do we look through when we look at the world? Is it through compatibilism or through incompatibilism? Is it compatibilism or is it libertarianism? When people do what they do they do what they do because they are determined to do what they did and they are supposed to be held accountable for what they did? Or were they free to do otherwise? Were they free to act against necessity or act apart from the constraint of necessity? These questions are very, very interesting to ask. My perspective is compatibilism. I am a compatibilist. I believe that I am free to do what I do. I am supposed to be held responsible for what I do. And I believe that I am determined to do what I do. And one of these antecedent factors that determines me to do what I do, say what I say, think what I think, is the sovereign God. Because when you think about time, when we say that God is the one who created time, are we saying that God just created time and rolled the dice to see what would happen? Did he look into the future? No. When we say God created time, we're also unavoidably saying God has created what is in time. And that is everything that happens in time. God decrees and ordains all things that happens. Why? For his glory. For his glory. And you may take the other perspective. This is not a salvation issue. You may take the other perspective, and that's fine. But my perspective is I believe that I'm determined to do what I do, and I am free to do what I do. And one of the antecedent factors that I cannot act without the constraint of. One of the antecedent factors that necessitate what I do, which I cannot act apart from, above, or against, is God. God himself. God is an antecedent factor in this. He is the controlling force behind all things that happen. You cannot act apart from. You don't have the power to act without the constraint of the necessity of the sovereignty of God. It's impossible. It's impossible. And that's just my perspective. But you can write some stuff in the comment section and let me know what you think about free will. And if you think that my perspective is wrong, tell me why you think it's wrong. And I want to also extend my apologies for not remembering the words. Oh, man. I haven't looked at this in a while. I remember the principles and the concepts, but there are some definitions that there are some definitions with labels that I forgot. I forgot the labels, which is the power to do otherwise. Yesterday, when I drank water at 12 o'clock, was I able to do otherwise? One perspective says that I could have done otherwise if I had desire to do so. But the reason why I desire to do so is because of antecedent factors about myself. The other one says this: you are able to do otherwise even if you are in a situation where there are some antecedent factors that would necessitate you doing what you do. You still were able to do otherwise. Still able to do otherwise. So, throw desire out the window. I say you can do otherwise if you had desire to do so, but your desires are determined. The other one says you could have done otherwise, even above and beyond the constraint of necessity, because you are able to do it without the constraint of necessity, even if one of those necessities is your desire. You can go beyond that and do otherwise. You could have done otherwise. That's why we often hear people say, if I could have gone back in time, I would have done this instead of that. If you go back in time and all things remained the same, you would have done the same thing. Something would have had to be different. And what would be different if you were to go back in time? The antecedent factor of you not knowing the outcome of your action would have disappeared. So if you were to go back in time and do something else, you were still determined, because the antecedent factor that made you do something else is the fact that you now know the outcome of the action that you took before. So it's very interesting. As you can see, it makes me happy to talk about these things. It's beautiful. But you can let me know what your perspectives are and what your perspective is about free will, and do some further research, do some further study about this very interesting topic. God bless you all. God bless you all. Have a good, whatever time it is in your country. Have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.